now.
No,
Hello, everyone. Hello, Maine. We are the Library Love Fest team.
we are.
Who are
minus
we?
one.
Minus one. Our fearless leader, Virginia Stanley, is on vacation this week, so she couldn't join us. But the good news is she's here in spirit and in bobblehead. If you've watched any of our videos before, we feature our bobbleheads heavily. They're custom made to resemble us, so this resembles Virginia.
That's a strong word, but it does.
Yes. Virginia, happy to be here in Maine? That's a yes. So I'm Chris Connolly. I'm the Library Marketing Associate at HarperCollins.
And I'm Lainey Mays, and I'm the Library Marketing Assistant at HarperCollins.
And thank you so much to Maine Library Association for welcoming us to your conference. I hope everyone's having a great time. I hope you have your handouts, which look like this. I also sent some galleys, so I hope you have some good reads ahead of you. Just some quick question, just notes for you who are attending. If you're a Maine librarian and you have a question, make sure you comment on Facebook and note that you're from the Maine Library Association, and we'll make sure to get to your questions if we have time. And beyond that, if you have any comments or questions, also comment, because we'll send you a selection of books along with some Maine paraphernalia.
Tell them what they've won!
Okay, yeah, so we did some deep research here, and we found out your state bird is the black-capped chickadee. So you'll win this. It'll stop. There we go. We also have some Maine jam, wild jam.
Blueberry, because you're known for blueberries.
Thank you, Lainey. And then we also have a Maine puzzle. We're big into puzzles in the library and academic marketing team. It's kind of like our therapy now. So this is a pretty epic one, 1,000 pieces. So if you think you can handle it, comment and we'll hook you up. And with that, we have a lot of books to talk about, so I think we're going to dive right in. And hope you enjoy. So I'm going to lead off, and I'm going to talk about a book we're particularly excited about, The Other Side of the Coin by Angela Kelly, The Queen, the Dresser, and the Wardrobe. So everyone loves, the Queen. They love the royal family and anything that is involved with their life. And this is a very unique look into a very special relationship. So Angela Kelly has been working with the Queen for 25 years. She started as Her Majesty's senior dresser and then became Her Majesty's personal advisor, curator, wardrobe, and in-house designer. She's the first person in history to hold this title, and her relationship is so long-going and very personal with the Queen. And in this book, Angela Kelly is giving kind of like a personal look at this 25 years of friendship with the blessing from the Queen, in fact, with plenty of anecdotes that are incredibly charming and human and really brings to light the personality of the Queen. It also has never before seen photographs from Angela's own collection. It's just so full of amazing, just like, again, kind of fly-on-the-wall anecdotes about this very special relationship. So this is coming October 29th. That's The Other Side of the Coin by Angela Kelly. And I think I'm going to continue talking, if y'all don't mind. We have High Fire by Owen Colfer. So
We
have a book. Yes, here we go. It's beautiful.
Yes.
So this is an adult standalone novel from Owen Colfer, which you will know from his Artemis Fowl series, which are now being re-released every month this year. It's kind of like the year of Owen Colfer. Also, a new book is coming within that series, The Fowl Twins. That's coming November of this year. And there's also a film adaptation in the works. So like I said, a lot of Owen coming your way. But we're really excited about this kind of irreverent adult fantasy novel that follows Wyvern, Lord Highfire of the Highfire Eyrie. He actually goes by Vern now. He's the last dragon alive. He lives in the bayous of Louisiana. In his shack, he kind of just drinks a lot, watches Flashdance, smokes too much, and he's really lonely. He's the last of his kind. But his paths cross with this kind of troublemaking kid who's on the run from this psychotic sheriff who wants the kid dead because he witnessed something that he shouldn't have witnessed. So these paths cross between Vern and young Everett Squibb, and they become an unlikely duo, and you follow their adventures as they kind of run for their lives and try to protect Squibb and his mom, who this psychotic sheriff has a thing for. it's so much fun. Again, a lot of these Artemis Fowl fans who read him growing up are now adults, and this is the perfect novel for them. Just so much fun and irreverent, but very funny, just hilarious. So absolutely adore it. It's January 28th on sale, and that's High Fire by Owen Colford. So.
Okay, me next. So my first one, I'm starting off with a bang, and this is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. You probably, if you've heard of it, it's been everywhere, so there's a good chance you have. I think it's taken not only our department by storm, but just HarperCollins in general. When this was sent around to everybody, everyone read it in a night and came back the next day, and they were just like, we have to discuss it. You know, it's such a book that you have to discuss, and so it's going to be great for book clubs. But this one, and it was also a Book Buzz 2019 Buzz book, so it just took Book X by storm. It's sold in like 24 countries, and it's crazy. And it's our lead read for Winter 20, which is a program that the Salesforce all gets together and votes on a book that they're going to support and get behind, and this is ours. So that enough of a lead up? This is exciting, right? So this is a story about Vanessa Weiss. She's 15, and part of which it takes place in Maine. She goes to kind of a boarding school in a way, and she lives there to get away from everything. She's kind of, she's precocious, and she's kind of thinks of herself as a little more mature. She doesn't really get along with people her age, and she goes to this school to get away from it. But while she's there, she develops a relationship with her much older English teacher, Jacob Strain, and this is in the early 2000s, and now the book goes back and forth between this and her as in her 30s looking back, and you really get this feeling that she thought this was this great love of her life, and she thought that everything was wonderful about it, and he really took her under his wing, and it was really different for them. But now in the present day, another one of his students has accused him of sexual assault. So she has to decide if he manipulated her or if that really was the greatest love of her life. And in one way or another, they do still talk. So he's in her life, but you come to revelations with her. You feel manipulated with her. It's just such a beautiful book. And I feel like it seems very timely, but she's been working on this and she was 16 years old. So it's been a long time in the making. She really took a lot from her experiences of just seeing girls being really sexualized in a way that they really don't have any control over, and what that means in this world, especially in the modern world with all of the things going on in the news. We have a great quote from Stephen King: "A hard story to read and a harder one to put down, a well-constructed package of dynamite."
I have to say, in my 4 years here at HarperCollins, my 4 long years, they don't feel that long, I have not seen the kind of reaction that this book has elicited as far as just like positive, all-encompassing reads from people from all different walks of life, male, female, it doesn't matter. Like, this is a book that is important and, again, all-consuming, and as we say. So.
I say that this is going to be a character, Vanessa Weiss, that like everyone will know in pop culture. There's just those books that everyone knows, and I think this is going to be a character. Also, we have these great library quotes in this new galley we have. So if you want to hear some of those, it's really wonderful. We have a lot of support for this one, and she came to speak at ALA, and you could hear a pin drop in that room. Everyone is just taken by this. So
you'll be hearing more. It's coming in January.
January. So. Oh, and it's me again. So this is the new Sarah Pinborough book, Dead to Her. So you might know Sarah from her previous novels, Behind Her Eyes. And Behind Her Eyes had this like hashtag, like WTF that ending. She's really known for twisty, crazy endings that you don't see coming. I read a lot of psychological suspense and thrillers, and I don't see them coming. But this is her first one. She lives in the UK, so a lot of her books are all in the UK. But this one is the first one. It's a little different. It's set in Georgia, so you get the like Old South in a way. It's kind of fun. And in this story, so it's set in Savannah, and you have Marcy Maddox, and she has had this great affair, and it has won her a life of affluence. So she's got everything you could ever want. But now she's becoming kind of not the new shiny thing. She's now been there a little bit, and she has to keep up with a lot of things and a lot of high society going on that she might not really fit into. And now a new wife has entered the picture. It's her husband's boss's new wife, and she's really young and gorgeous, and she's also black, so she has this like, you know, this new element coming into the society and really bringing different things on her own. And she has to decide, Marcy does, is she going to keep this life? Her husband eyes kind of wander a little bit. So how is she going to keep this life that she is really put together for herself? But like I said, really big fans of like twisty, crazy endings, and this one's just so fun, and we're excited. We're excited to have Sarah on our list. So, and also they've started filming for the Netflix film. It's going to be 6 episodes for Behind Her Eyes. So it's going to be a lot of Sarah Pinborough in the news. So we're excited about this one. And that one comes out in February.
Hey. Who's next? No, Marlene.
More? Okay, if you're not tired of me yet. So another thriller that we're really excited about is The Lucky One by Lori Rader Day. You probably know Lori Rader Day. She's really big in this world. She's a great writer, and she is Edgar Award nominated, so for her last book, Under a Dark Sky. And this one, same vein, if you love her or new fans alike, you're really going to find it here. And she actually, in her, the book has to do with this, so I'm going to say it now. She's going to be president of Sisters in Crime, which is this true crime group, and she's just a writer's writer, and we all love Lori. She was on our podcast, so check that out on our website, and if you have a handout, all that information's on there. She was so great to talk to. She came into the office and told all about this story, but really quickly, the story is about a girl who, when she's young, she's taken from her home, she's kidnapped, but she's fine. In 24 hours, her dad's a police officer. He finds her, totally fine. She moves on with her life. And then she, when she's older, she's really into this, like, internet sleuth website called the Doe Pages, like Jane Doe. And she is really into, like, helping solve crimes. And so, you know, that's really making a comeback with a lot of internet sleuths and a lot of people really interested in true crime. So I think that's also going to be a draw for this book. If you love true crime, you're going to love this book. But this is a fictionalization, I have to say that. And it's going to be a library hardcover. Put that in there too. But so she's on this website. She's trying to figure out, you know, things she's working on. And all of a sudden an image pops up, and it's the man that took her. I got gasp when I presented this once, and I find it so fun to do. But so he goes away within 24 hours. So she's got to decide why he's on this website and why he went away, and maybe she can find him. It's really fun, and we love Lori Rader Day. So
she's amazing.
Yeah.
All right.
Me again?
No, it's me this time.
Okay.
My time has come. So I will be telling you about a thriller, though, so it's not too jarring of a shift.
Okay.
8 Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson. Holy smokes, I've been reading Peter Swanson for a while now, and it's really exciting to see an author who you want to see read more widely start to get that recognition and those sales. And with his previous book, Before She Knew Him, we finally saw people kind of waking up to how good of a thriller author Peter is. He gets a lot of love in library land. Previous books have been library read selections. But he always finds a very interesting way to turn the thriller genre on its head in unique ways with each book. And with 8 Perfect Murders, so his books, Peter's books are always very creepy, very like looming dread, danger in the shadows. And this one, though, also has a book lover element where essentially what's happening is there's this man, Malcolm, who runs a bookshop, and he's like a thriller mystery aficionado. And years back, he put together this list of the 8 most perfect murders in all of fiction. And he also includes some movies there. So he pulls what were some of his inspirations here. It was Agatha Christie's ABC Murders, Patricia Highsmith's Stranger on a Train, Ira Levin's Death Trap. So he's pulling all these murders, and he put it on this website for the bookstore and kind of forgot about it. But then years later, he walks into his bookstore, and there's an FBI agent waiting for him who has a hunch there might be a murderer out there who is following his list, who is following Malcolm's list for inspiration. And so of course, Malcolm might be a little bit under, suspicion, but she's also just looking for his expertise because someone's obviously following what Malcolm did. And Malcolm has secrets of his own. So it's very twisting, again, for book lovers. There's a lot of references to these books and these movies and how Peter, again, brilliantly twists those into the story itself. I also think of like Anthony Horowitz, if you're a big fan of him. I know we have some praise from him on the handout, Fiendish Good Fun, but also kind of that very kind of meta storytelling mode that Anthony is so good with. I think Peter nails it here as well. So highly recommend. It's coming March 3rd. Check it out. 8 Perfect Murders. So.
Okay, I have another one for you. This is Separation Anxiety by Laura Zigman. This one comes out in March, and we really love this one too. It's very fun. It's very heartfelt. Very sweet. Laura is the author of Animal Husbandry, and then this one, it's so fun. We all love it here, and Virginia really loves this.
It's a Virginia Stanley thing. She even dressed. Yep, she dressed
put it in her
up to
bag.
match.
And so, yeah, she does match it. That's funny. It's got everything she loves, like quirky and fun characters, but also like really sweet and heartfelt. And I think it's in a way a little morose, but like in a way that it's like that life is kind of bland sometimes and it gets you down, but like what are you going to do? And you rise above it or you come to terms with things. And in this story, we have Judy, who's this kind of washed up children's author. She had this one big hit and now she's kind of riding those coattails, and she has this job where she writes internet articles. A little ironic because they're about like doing good for you and being self-help, and she can't really help herself at this moment. But so she has a young son, and she has a husband, or the husband and her kind of on the rocks. They only live together for the son. So she's really just kind of like parroting her life, and then she uncovers in the attic her son's like old baby sling, those things you carry, and she puts her dog in it. And then the dog just kind of stays, and it becomes her heart, like she feels better when the dog is there. It's more comforting. And so now her son's embarrassed, and then people are just confused about this dog. But that's really what gets her through. We've had so much good response from this one. They did mailings for it, and it just has come back with all of these things. It's perfect for book clubs. And we have a great quote from Laura Lippman that came in. So sometimes a book finds its way to you, and you just know instantly that it's the book you need now. That's how I feel about Separation Anxiety. I think it's the book everyone needs right now. It is compassionate and funny, articulating with great humor and terrible things that we're all grappling with. To steal a phrase from my daughter, it made me happy cry. And we love Laura Lippman, so that was a great one. And also, she is a Maine author. She lives in Cambridge, so good for you to know. Mm-hmm. Get her to your library. Yes. That's Separation Anxiety by Laura Zigman.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and any of you there who deal with programming or starting up programming at your library, we're the people you want to talk to. So just let us know, and we'll do everything we can to get some exciting events together. So, and I think I am up now with 88 Names by Matt Ruff. This is a super fun kind of speculative thriller that takes place in this near future. Actually, let me just frame Matt Ruff for a second, because I think he's such a special, unique author. He bounces around in genre. He takes like kind of a crazy idea and morphs it into a really streamlined, strong story in ways you wouldn't expect. So he wrote Lovecraft Country, which was critically acclaimed. It's actually going to be a series for HBO produced by J.J. Abrams, Jordan Peele, who did Get Out and Us, and then Misha Green. And then he also did Bad Monkeys, which is so fun, and that's being developed as a film by Universal Studios and Lucky Chap Entertainment. So he, and again, bounces around with genre, but with this one, it takes place in this near future society where VR gaming has kind of been perfected, where it's completely immersive, and a lot of people spend the majority of their lives in this VR world. And most of the story takes place there, so you have these action scenes, you have, just some twists and turns that are, again, in the VR realm. But you follow John Chu's what's called a Sherpa, and basically what that is it's like rich people who don't have time to like build armor or like gain skills or get really good at these video games. They pay John and his team to kind of show them the ropes and get them special loot and kind of like, accelerate their progress through these video games. And John takes a job for this mysterious man called Mr. Jones, who he claims to be just this influential, wealthy person, but he seems very inept and kind of clueless about how VR gaming works, which is strange because, basically all of modern society knows at this point how it works. And so John begins to suspect that this Mr. Jones is actually the North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. It sounds zany, but it's actually could be. But it's funny how he pieces together these clues. And basically John finds himself in danger in real life as well, he and his team. But it's a really interesting world because everyone is basically acting through their avatars. People have a lot of control over their identity and sexuality and what you see and what you don't. And Matt really plays with that brilliantly. He doesn't get too much into the weeds with technical details about like how VR works. It's more like, how is this environment which you have ultimate control over yourself? How does that work when you're playing with national intrigue, essentially? So it's so much fun. I actually interviewed Matt, and that interview is available on our website. If you go to SoundCloud Library Love Fest, I had a great interview with Matt, and you'll get to know him and see why he's so brilliant and thoughtful. It's a great interview and a great book. So it's coming March 17th. That's 88 names.
It's a really great interview, but also I wanted to say, like, as someone who doesn't read a lot of that genre, like, it was very accessible and I really enjoyed it. Like, so I think if you're turned off by maybe the technology aspect, you're gonna be fine. It's really about the relationships and like how he lives within this world.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm not a gamer either, so it's not. I mean, there's some lingo, I think, but they
explains.
Yeah, he brings you along for the ride, and you don't feel lost or anything. So
literally, he's a Sherpa to his own book.
Wow.
Matt.
Nanny, you're on today.
So many levels. So next is Broken by Don Winslow. So I don't have a lot to show you, but I have Don's picture so you can see this. And this is going to be a short story collection, a short novel collection, 5 of them. And you know Don Winslow, he wrote the Cartel trilogy, and just lately he had The Border, which was also a Spanish version, if you're interested in that. And that's in developments for other things, which is exciting. So everyone loves Don Winslow, and this is going to be just something totally different from his trilogy that he just finished. And they're all separate and standalone. You can read all 5 like short stories by themselves. But what's cool is that the lead characters all show up as side characters in some of the stories, and you also might see a few characters in his other books that you might recognize. And they're like the famous ones, so everyone's excited to see them come back. And we're really excited for Don Winslow. I'm sorry I don't have a cover to show you, but this is going to be fun, and we're big fans of him here.
Yeah.
So. That one's coming out in April of 2020, so you've got a little bit. But
There'll be a lot of noise for this one. Don Winslow's foremost. And you know, he also writes about immigration and issues with violence and the drug trade. He's like a foremost expert on that. So
like Stephen King about The Border, he said, you can't ask, wrong one. There was a quote, anyway. I don't know where I lost it, but people were saying like you relate to these because you live within these worlds, and it's like really topical for things going on like with immigrants and things like that. Yeah.
Very important.
It was Janet Maslin. That's who said it. You don't read these books, you live in them.
Yeah.
So.
I remember reading The Power of the Dog, and that's how I felt, like sucked into it, for better or worse, because there's some hard stuff that happens, but it all needs to be explored, and no one does a better job of it than Don Winslow. So, hold on to your hats, everyone. Here we go.
I'm like gaga about this book. I've read it twice so far, and I can't wait to read it again. I had a great interview with Elizabeth, so check it out on our podcast as well, called her. She lives in Chicago, so we talked via the computer, but it was really wonderful, and it just meant so much to me because I think this book means so much to me. So this is Valentine, debut novel by Elizabeth Wetmore. And if you're a fan of like Barbara Kingsolver or Elizabeth Strout, this is right up your alley. And when I say like stunning debut, I just don't have the words to tell you how beautiful it is. It's set in Odessa, Texas in the 70s, and in an oil rig town, so it's kind of like grimy and gritty and beautiful, like setting, time, place that all factors into it. But it opens the day after Valentine's Day, and a girl named Glory Ramirez has survived a very brutal attack by a man in town, kind of like a good old boy. And she is a first-generation immigrant, so her mom is from Mexico. And she finds her way to a house and gets away from him, thankfully. But a woman, Mary Rose, opens a door. She owns this house, and she sees this young girl, this 14, 15-year-old girl on her porch, and she's just brutally attacked. Like, she should not have survived this. And the rest of the book is the different women, Glory included, but the different women's perspectives throughout this process of this happening to her, and then the trial that follows it and what leads up to it. But there's a lot of themes of race and like the universal woman struggle all comes into it. But it's so cool because it's all in these women's voices, and I think not a lot of books are doing that where you're just hearing their side, but also women with their own privileges, which I think is very interesting too, because you do have this aspect of race. And so like you obviously have this female struggle, but like these women may not care as much as somebody else that had gone through it. It's really beautiful, and I can't recommend it enough. It's so I think I'm just gonna stop it there because it's just so great, and you're gonna want to know about this book, and it comes in April. And check out the podcast interview because you get a big deep dive and lots of fun characters.
They're so good. You'll probably love all of them, but they're all so unique and well written, and yeah.
I love DA, this little girl who her mom has kind of left her because she, was pulling, and you get that story a lot with these women who are just kind of there, like and you get this vision with like the oil fields and how it's taking this oil out of the land and like sucking it dry, but the men are kind of doing that to the women too. Oh, I know one thing I have to tell you. So we came in, Virginia and I both, and we were like, it really reminds me of Flannery O'Connor. And she's like, that's what I said. And we mean that as like the highest compliment ever. Very gritty. The characters are so well drawn out, and it's so good. So, all right, I'm gonna stop talking about it now because I can talk about it forever.
Let's stay in Texas though.
Okay.
All right. Simon the Fiddler by Paulette Giles. If you read News of the World, you know how big of a deal this is. If you haven't read News of the World, tell me right now. I'll send you a copy because you deserve to read that book. It's so good. Every person that I've ever sent that book to adores it. It's brilliant. It was a National Book Award finalist, so I'm not the only one with this hot take. It's an amazing book. It's going to be a film starring Tom Hanks. And with Simon the Fiddler, Paulette returns to a very similar time and place. It's Texas. The Civil War is winding down. It's 1865, so there's still some skirmishes, but again, it's almost at its end. And much like News of the World, where you had Captain, who was, a hard man, but also very warm inside and thoughtful and introspective. That's what you have here with Simon. So Simon is a fiddler, as you might have guessed based on the title, and he has, up to this point, narrowly dodged being drafted into the Civil War. He's in Texas, and he goes around playing the fiddle, but one skirmish occurs after he plays a show. He gets locked up, and he ultimately is brought into the Confederate Army as a fiddler. So he's marching around with this group and with the Confederate Army, and again, things are winding down, but his path does cross with this lovely Irish dame, Doris, and he immediately falls in love with her, but she is a governess to a Union colonel's daughter, and she has 3 years of service left before she's free. So what Simon does is, one, he's dedicated to, not dying at the tail end of the Civil War with these random small skirmishes, but he also wants to get rich and get famous and eventually take Doris's hand. Again, like News of the World, there's hard, this is a hard time to be alive, especially depending if who you are, but it's also so heartfelt as you cheer for Simon and Doris to get together. She's just a beautiful, beautiful author. I can't say enough. Enemy Women is another one. She's a New York Times bestselling author. Every book of hers is brilliant. She's in Texas, and just a beautiful, literary, smart author. So, love it. So, that's Simon the Fiddler by Paulette Giles. That's coming April 14th. All right, and it's more me this time. I have a debut to tell you about, The Coyotes of Carthage by Stephen Wright. So this is kind of a legal, political thriller to a degree. Just to tell you a little bit about Stephen, because he's a really impressive guy. He is a veteran of Obama's Justice Department, and he now runs the Innocence Project at the University of Wisconsin-Madison Law School. So a very impressive guy, and he knows a lot about politics and economics and how populations can be manipulated within the political process to go against their better interests. And that's kind of what this novel is about. So you follow Dre, who is a political consultant, and he is an aggressive one at that. I guess they all are, but Dre takes it above and beyond, which has worked for his like ascent within this industry, but he takes it one step too far, finds himself kind of exiled on this less than desirable job in South Carolina, where there's like $250,000 of dark money that he's being paid to infiltrate this community and get this town in South Carolina to vote for this mining company, to basically give away all this land to this mining company. But he needs to frame this in a way where they think this population is voting for their best interest, which they're obviously not. But Dre's a black man, and this is mostly a white rural community. So what he does is he has to enlist the help of this local couple, this white couple, to get this community on their side. So they'll ultimately vote to sell this land off to be drilled. There's so much just like poignant, observant, pulled from real life inspiration for this book. And you also follow Dre. He's a very interesting character. He's cutthroat, but he's not completely devoid of conscience. And especially once he sees kind of how this is playing out and how this community is turning against themselves, he has to kind of begin to question himself as well. I have this quote from Laurie Moore. "This lively, observant novel is a kind of national tragicomedy of manners. Stephen Wright possesses a sly, heartbroken ruefulness towards a large intersection of worlds, a kaleidoscope of race, class, family, work, and the rough and poignant hoopla of our electoral process. Once in a while, an American political novel comes along that is part news, part satire, and everywhere full of jolts and wit. The Coyotes of Carthage delivers on all that with brilliance and verve." This is coming April 14th. Once again, we're absolutely thrilled about this, and you'll be hearing a lot about it. That's The Coyotes of Carthage by Stephen Wright.
Great.
Ooh, this is one that's exciting. I'm just telling you, the one Lainey's going to talk about is very exciting. I can't wait. Yes.
We have a nonfiction for you. And I say it's everything I want my nonfiction to have. A good nonfiction. Thank you. So this is The Compton Cowboys by Walter Thompson Hernandez. And Walter is a LA-based New York Times reporter. But he grew up in LA, so he has kind of both sides of this coin. He understands this, where he lives and where he reports. But he's really focused on telling people's stories that maybe are like marginalized or a subculture or like offbeat. He has a really great new series. He does like multimedia for the newspaper, and so he has one on the Black classical musicians in Rio de Janeiro, which is really interesting. But this is based on an article he wrote called "For the Compton Cowboys, Horseback Riding is a Legacy and Protection." And so this came out, and when they launched this book to us, I was automatically like here for it. They showed videos, and you just are sucked into this life. You want to know more about them, and this is a great way they did this in this book. It's so cool, and you can see some of them on the cover. But this is a story about a group of men who it's interesting because they started off as this Compton Junior Posse. A woman created a group for young boys and kids to come in the neighborhood in Compton in LA and really get out some aggression and like really connect with horses and kind of get off the streets. And so they grew up in this group when they were younger, and she was really continuing a legacy for showing them their like the legacy that these black cowboys had, because that's something when I was reading, I didn't know about, and I learned a lot too. They're like, after the Civil War, a lot of black men would go, out where LA is now, and they settled this, and it was the West at that point. And so there was this big tradition of black cowboys, but they're not represented in mainstream media, because that's not what you think of when you think of like a cowboy or a Western. And so she wanted to continue this, and she started this group to show them that, but also it had this other effect of getting them off the street. And so now, present day, this group of men, she is leaving, and so they're going to take over her ranch and kind of create it into this new formed thing, the Compton Cowboys. And they have a cowgirl too, so let you know that. But you should check out their Instagram. It's so fun and cool to see them ride, and they want to like get into the rodeo circuit. But it really just created this safe haven for them. And I have this quote from the book that I think sums it up really well. It's one of the cowboys, Mr. Harris, talking. And so it says, "They don't pull us over or search us when we're on the horses," Mr. Harris said while riding a dark brown horse named Coda as two police cars slowly drove past him on a recent trip to the store. "They would have thought we were gangbangers and had guns or dope on us if we weren't riding, but these horses protect us from all of that." And I think that's a perfect way to sum it up. Like, they are protected from, brutality or, racial discrimination and all of these things because they have this big protection. They're like, why is this person on a horse riding down the street? Which also is very weird in LA. But it's truly just a really heartfelt story and a true story at that, and you learn something new. And it's also going to be a young reader's edition, so we have that, and it could really be a great community read, I think. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that one is coming out in April, late April.
Okay, so I have a new collection of short stories from Richard Ford. He's a Pulitzer Prize, PEN Faulkner Award winning author of Canada, Between Them, and Independence Day. Just a revered, lyrical, kind of just brilliant, observant author. And these short stories kind of run the gamut, but they're all deeply human. One follows a young man who he's growing up in the South, and he has this encounter with an Irish immigrant who tries to solace this narrator's sorrow because he lost his father. But you drive around, you have one where an American woman is driving to Canada to kind of reconnect with a lover who she's lost. But they do follow all over the place. There's one that takes place in the French Quarter. It just runs the gamut, and it's so, again, for short stories, they're kind of epic and sweeping, and they just touch on all these intimate moments for a very diverse cast of characters and their lives. Let's see if there's anything else I need to say. Again, Richard Ford is just so beloved. He's always a big deal. This is coming in May, so we have a little bit of a wait for it. I know you have his author photo there. We finally have the jacket, which is beautiful. And also, Richard is a Maine resident, so we always want to call that out. I will look into what he is up to for the publication of the book. But regardless, this is just a must-read for any Richard Ford fan, new or old.
Great.
You'll come to it. So that's me.
So, me next. And on your handout, it has the author's photo, but we have hot off the press cover image for you. So this is These Women by Ivy Pacoda. And you might know Ivy as the author of Wonder Valley and Visitation Street. This book, we're pulling out all the stops. This is a big lead title, and it's really gritty. It grabs you from the first page. It's a literary thriller. So you have a mystery and a psychological aspect, but it is literary. And this story, it was described to me as, and I think this is the best way to put it, in a traditional murder mystery, you're going to have the killer, you're going to have the people surrounding him or her, the people that are affected by this, and the victims. And in this, you get all of that, but you take out the murderer. So cool. I love describing it like that, because you really are giving word back to these women that are surrounding this and having to go through it. And I think, as someone who's really big in the true crime, there is this push for more agency for women on the outskirts and women who might not be represented because of their career, their job, their family, etc. You know what I'm talking about. So it's like these women who you get voices and you get their story back. And I think this does it in such a cool way where it's kind of like Valentine, where you get these women's stories, but this one just revolves like taking out the main offender, because it's not their story. I don't care. I want to know about the women who are affected. But something really interesting about Ivy, she volunteers on Skid Row. She actually works at a writing center. So she really pulls from her own experiences and hears these voices every day. So she really puts them in this book, which I found to be really cool. And she knows how to write a literary thriller really well. And I love everything this cover says, I think tells you about the book. From the start, I was just like, I need to know what's going on. And you do have a woman who is dealing with her daughter's murder as well, so you kind of get this hurt at the beginning and you get to know her as well. But yeah, this is These Women by Ivy Pacoda, and that's coming out in May, so it's a little bit of a ways away, but we're really excited about this one.
Okay, we have 10 minutes, so we'll try to get through as many as possible. We might not get through them though, so if you have questions on any of these books, again, our contact info is on the handout. Never hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll aim to entertain and inform.
Aimed Entertained.
Aimed Entertained. All right, I have a Virginia Stanley favorite, so that's always fun. This is Almond by Won Pyong-sung, who is a Korean author. This book was actually published in Korea already, and it was like this kind of smash success. It sold over 200,000 copies in Korea. Won Pyong is also actually a very successful screenwriter there. And this is from our Harper Via imprint, which is a newly launched imprint that focuses on global stories, some often in translation, but what they focus on is stories that kind of cross borders, cross oceans. They're universal in their appeal. And this is definitely one of these. So this is a coming-of-age story, which explains Virginia's love for it. But it's so unique and thoughtful, and I love this protagonist. So you see the comp there, the emissary meets the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime, which I think really frames this well. You follow young Yoon Jae, who was born with a naturally small amygdala, which those are kind of like the little almond-shaped neurons in your brain that allow you to feel anger and fear, sympathy, things like that. And his are small, and so he was raised by his young single mom who owns a used bookstore, and there's so many great little tidbits there. They live above this used bookstore. So he lives with her and his grandmother, and they aren't really fazed by how distant he is. They do everything they can just to help him know how humans should interact, whether it's like what's good, what's bad, why you should feel angry, say like when you should smile even. These are things that he's been instructed on how to do. But there's a tragedy that befalls his family, and Yoon Jae, on his 16th birthday, finds himself completely alone in the world. And obviously for someone who has difficulty connecting or understanding human emotions, this is particularly, confusing and terrifying. But what he finds is that there's another troubled teenager, Gon, who kind of starts out as a bully and makes Yoon Jae's life kind of a hell. But they eventually start to connect, and through their friendship kind of get through this, the coming of age as they deal with life and everything that it throws at them. Just a really special book, and again, I think Harper Via and everyone here at HarperCollins is really excited about it. It's coming May 19th. That's Almond, so do check it out.
Okay, I'm going to try to be pretty quick because we have a lot of good ones. So this is Jessica Barry, Don't Turn Around, her second after her debut of Free Fall, which was like crazy. Everyone loved it here so much. Psychological thriller, another one. And actually, so this is a pseudonym. This is her, but not her name is not Jessica Barry, but she just moved to Maine, so that's good to know for you guys. And then this book, Don't Turn Around, two women are on this road and they're strangers, but when a truck comes by, they start to realize slowly that somebody is coming to hunt them specifically, and they have to decide if they're going to trust each other or if they've had secrets of their own, so this life might not really come to be a trustful life that they've lived. So how are they going to learn to right now? And it revolves around a group that one of them is in that takes women from Texas over to Mexico to escape really abusive relationships. And so with the election coming, I think that there's a lot of hot button issues in this book, and but it's not overly preachy or political, so you kind of get that taste of it where it's I need something for agency and women's agency, and you get that in this. But it's really a strong narrative and about women helping women, and so I think everyone's craving that as well. I call it hashtag girl power books, so we have a lot of those that we presented today, but this one's exciting. It's coming June 2020, and everyone loves Jessica Barry here, so we can't wait for you to read this one, and we'll have a cover soon hopefully to show you.
Okay, and I'll try to be quick as well. I have two books to tell you about. First is How to Drag a Body and Other Safety Tips You Hope to Never Need by Judith Matliff. So I don't have a jacket or anything to show you yet, but this is a very cool kind of guide, useful guide. These are legitimate tips from Judith, who is a seasoned war correspondent and professor at Columbia Journalism School. So she's been through it. She knows how to survive in harsh, sparse conditions. Think of this kind of in the vein of the worst case scenario survival handbook for women to take on whatever the world throws at you. So I'll just give you a few bullet points. Perhaps you live in an earthquake zone and need to assemble an emergency kit. Maybe you want to build emotional resilience in the event of an accident. Or perhaps you're a college student worried about rape at fraternity parties. These are all very legitimate questions, and there's a whole list of them that really haven't been tackled in a succinct how-to way. And Judith just has all the experience in the world, and she knows and kind of guides you through this. So a really helpful book, and I think it kind of fills a gap in the market that people need this. So it's coming June 16th. It's How to Drag a Body and Other Safety Tips You Hope to Never Need. And then another title from our Harper Via imprint, The Color of Air by Gail Tsukiyama. So she is the New York Times best-selling author of The Samurai's Garden. This is her first return to writing in 7 years, and we are absolutely thrilled. It's kind of this epic family saga that follows Daniel Abe. He's this young doctor who's returning home to Hawaii after he's working in Chicago and has this tragic accident where a patient dies. So he returns home, and basically his life intersects with family members he hasn't seen and who have their own past as well, including an uncle who is in love with Daniel's mom, and also a childhood friend who's a merchant at this fish market who doesn't really know why Daniel's coming home, and they have a lot of catching up to do. Again, it's kind of sweeping and epic, but full of like intimate moments. And this is all kind of taking place in the looming eruption of Mauna Leo volcano. So you have this kind of high stakes looming threat as these individuals come together and kind of discover each other's stories and what they've been missing. So a big deal. Again, I don't have a jacket yet, but our Harper Via imprint is so good with making beautiful jackets. So keep your eyes peeled. I'm sure we'll share it once it's available. And this is coming July 7th. It's The Color of Air.
Okay, I have to get this one in because I'm so excited about it. This one is Memorial Drive by Natasha Trethewey. Natasha was a former U.S. Poet Laureate, and she has written several books of poetry, but and so this is her memoir, and it's such a beautiful book. I can't tell you how much it just captivated me and took me away. I had to remind myself that I was reading a memoir, which doesn't happen, I think, a lot. I kind of just went in blind. I was like, oh, reading it. And I was like, wait, I got to remind myself, this is not fiction. It's so beautiful and but in a heartbreaking way. And I'm going to get to that. So I think in a way, actually reading it reminded me a lot of reading Kate Mulgrew's, why am I going blank? Kate Mulgrew's, anyway, her memoir where it's
How to Forget.
How to Forget. Well, see, I already forgot. How to Forget. It's so lyrical, and you're just drawn into it, and you forget what you're doing. You forget train stops. It was this. So she's lyrical. She's a poet, but it's based on her life. And at 19, she grew up in Mississippi, and she found herself in Georgia later on. She is biracial, and her dad is white and her mom is black. And so she talks a lot about that and a lot of the racial things that were going on in her life. But at 19, unfortunately, her stepfather murdered her mom. And this was just life altering. Obviously, I can't even imagine. But to really come to terms with what your life is and your level of memory and what that means to you. And she was just, it's beautiful. I can't even tell you. And it's heartbreaking, but she is pushing herself to those limits to really talk about her life and put it in perspective in that way. And so I can't recommend it enough. It's great nonfiction, and you hate that it's so lyrical and it reads like fiction because it really doesn't seem like that could really happen. This is a picture of her and her mom, which is really sweet. So that's
all right.
And it's coming out, in July.
Okay. I'm just gonna mention one quick book. We have 3 books at the end, which are kind of dealing with animals and the various ways we can learn from them. Really, I mean, that's a huge market. I think H is for Hawk. But one book I just really want to quickly mention because it's such a topical issue: Tender Mercies by Rosaria Pablo Cruz with Julie Schweitert. Rosie, as she goes by, she was separated from her children when she was trying to escape from Guatemala, where violence was rampant. And she and her 2 children tried to, come into the United States. And when they got here, they were separated. And so this is a story of Rosie reconnecting and finding her children, and Julie, who founded the Immigrant Families Together organization, helped Rosie with that. And so this is their story. It's an important story, and again, it's not going anywhere. This issue's not going anywhere. So having these human perspectives on the issue is always so vitally important. We'll be publishing it in a Spanish language edition And it's coming next August. So that's Tender Mercies. Look out for that. That's an important book. And then again, they're all important. We love them all. We just are out of time. So for everyone at the Maine Library Association, thank you so much for having us today. We hope you were entertained and informed.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions, again, let us know. We'll put a link to the handout, a digital copy online for anyone who didn't get one. And maybe just like a summary of everything we talked about. And everyone who joined us digitally as well, thank you so much. It's always so much fun. And next time you'll catch us, and I think Virginia Stanley will be with us full-sized. So,
can't be replaced.
No. So we missed her, but we hope you enjoyed, and thank you so much for joining us. Bye.
Bye.